My name is Robert. My story is this. Back in 2001, I was arrested for doing something very stupid, and I was involved in a police pursuit. As a result, I wound up getting 6 years in state prison. When I went to prison, I was obviously extremely distraught. At that time, I had already begun my career in the entertainment industry and was going pretty good. I lost everything. And I'm not saying that every individual that goes to prison doesn't have something going on, but for me, I had a pretty good life going up until that point. So I was extremely distraught. In fact, so distraught, I really contemplated dying. It was that traumatic for me. During those moments when I really was contemplating dying, I happened to meet somebody that was working there at the prison that I was housed at. And it started off with just a smile. And from there, it took on a life of its own. And we began to discreetly correspond with each other.
My name is Catherine Clark Perkins. My story, I am a prison wife, and I met my husband from behind the wall. I met him on the streets, and our love started from behind the wall. When he was in jail, me and my kids, even though he's not the father of my kids, we wrote letters to each other. We actually talked on the telephone, even though he had a phone, which was illegal. But now they have those GTL where you can call him for free now. They even have tablets, which is a blessing, where he get the call for free, and he also get to send text messages, which is a blessing. That's how we still maintain our long distance. But he's serving a sentence, life without the possibility of parole.
My name is Robert Lopez. Currently, I'm in Nevada, Las Vegas. I'm from Whittier, California. I'm on house arrest. I'm in Nevada for another 5 months. I've been on house arrest for over a year. And I'm on here working, just trying to make the best of it. What happened was I got incarcerated for a drug possession charge. I had to do 9 months in the state prison, and I had to do another year on house arrest. I ended up taking a friend for a drive, and we ended up getting pulled over. They ended up having some narcotics on them. I was the driver, so responsible for the car, so I had to take the fall for it.
My name is Kevin Smith. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I've been working with incarcerated folk in a variety of settings for the last 7 or 8 years now. Currently in private practice, doing a lot of mental health outpatient work, but done a little bit of everything from inpatient psychiatric care to working in prison settings to group homes to people of all ages, from 5 years old to my oldest client being 92 years old.
Hi, my name is Alison Riley, and I was born in Santa Monica, California, raised in Las Vegas. And my story is a little complicated, but I will give it my best to tell it as well as I can. I was about 3 the first time I was introduced to alcohol, and I remember I loved the flavor, and my dad would give me rum and Coke often. At 5, he took us out and went camping, and we got retardedly drunk. I fell in love with alcohol that night. After that, I started seeking it by myself. By the time I was 11, I got on drugs. I was on cocaine, ketamine, and by the time I was 12, I started doing meth. I was hooked by 12, like bad. 13, started doing Oxycontin and Xanax, taking my mother's pills. By the time I was 17, I was shooting heroin. Started burying a lot of my friends around then. 2 of my best friends, I had to bury them. 2 of my boyfriends passed away. 1 was shot and killed by the police. I also didn't realize, but I really didn't have a choice. I became obsessed with drugs, and that comes with the territory of becoming a lawbreaker. I had to start breaking the law to maintain my habit.
My name is Beck. I was at San Quentin State Prison. I'm 63 years old. I started there when I was 20, late 1980, and left state service in 2000. So I was there for 20 years. The reason I worked at San Quentin and enjoyed it, the good part about it was during that time, 1980, pay scales were very low. San Quentin started at $16.09 a month. I actually was going to join the Army and try that, but that was only about $800 a month. So after seeing 2 enormous prison guards at a job fair, they talked me into not going into the Army and to joining them, which at the time I was a bodybuilder, so they kind of wanted me. I was a 240-pound monster. They wanted the bigger guys working there. So that was the good part about it. The bad part about it was a lot of the politics involved in the upper management and just how they ran the prison. What I felt was a lot of racism at that time, a lot of racial disparity. And subsequently after that, I joined on with the union after 1980 and became a union job steward and went on to become vice president. So I didn't have a fantastic reputation while doing it.
I worked for law enforcement. I was just a regular clerk, and their law is that you have to get it approved from the captain to go visit someone who is incarcerated. And I didn't know that there was such a thing that you have to get it approved. And they said, well, you do. And they sent me home, and they ran an investigation, and they said, hey, you've been going to see this person for this amount of time. And I said, yes, I have. And they discharged me. So I still chose to make that decision, but it's like a roller coaster, because when I was discharged from the job, you can imagine my psychological mind. I mean, I had to go see a psychiatrist. I was taking Prozac pills, and it really damaged my relationship with my husband from behind the wall. Even though I still love him, I'm in love with him, but it really damaged our relationship. And even though he understands, he still loves me, but it put a strain on our marriage. And it sent me down a roller coaster. And I'm being honest, I really needed psychological help, because he was like, I never dated anyone who's on drugs. And even though he's behind the wall and he loves me, I had to take medication. I couldn't travel. COVID hit. So it was like, what do I do? So it put a strain on our relationship.
It started off with me dropping off a note in a little basket that she carried around the prison, to which she would respond in turn by me grabbing a note from her basket. And then she went and got a P.O. box with a fake name and began writing to me in that manner. So this went on for about a year until I was transferred to another facility. And I believe that I was transferred because somebody saw something and they became alerted to the situation. I have to add, though, that during the process of this courtship, I was determined that if something were to happen, I was going to take full blame, go to the hole, whatever the case may be, to avoid her getting into any trouble. Because if she would have got caught, she would have been fired, and it would have been a very ugly situation. So I was determined that I was not going to let that happen. I was going to take full responsibility. But anyway, I was transferred to another prison where I had 4 more years to go. We continued the correspondence via mail. Upon my release, she had a place waiting for me, and I got out and I was with her, and I have been with her to this day. I was released in 2006. Here we are 17 years later, and we're still together.
Yeah, so we did see female COs do get involved with prisoners. And at the female prisons, I think Madera at that time was a female prison. The male guards, of course, were getting in some trouble occasionally. That did happen. But yes, at Quentin there was some issues with the female officers having relationships with some of the prisoners.
So I'm Sam Richardson. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Nevada. I've been practicing therapy for about just shy of 20 years now. When somebody's in jail for a really long time, they can definitely develop symptoms of PTSD, where there's just this ongoing sense of, I'm not safe, I just can't settle in. Trauma can happen almost inevitably, especially if they're dealing with a lot of just isolation on their own, dealing with violence that happens within prisons, or just this ongoing circumstance of just this never-ending stress. Am I safe? Am I gonna be okay? The more somebody is in that kind of state, just not knowing if they're okay or not, they can develop what we refer more to developmental trauma, where it's more of an ongoing circumstance that creates PTSD.
I feel it was unfair because I gotta be responsible for giving somebody a ride and them having something on them that I don't know about. And I rented the car, so I had to take the fall for it, and that was it. Some of the harder things about being on house arrest right now are I get 4 hours a week to do my shopping, to take care of my errands, to get stuff that I need for work. And it's very difficult to do that on 4 hours. Other than that, I have to be inside. I got an ankle bracelet, so they know where I'm at 24/7. And if I'm late or whatever, they call me, let me know, you gotta get home. You just can't be out at that time. And I gotta comply to all the rules. So having her do all my errands after that, I know it's a big burden, but she has to. I have no one else to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm still feeling the strain of him being on house arrest because, we're still incarcerated almost. The only good thing I could say, wonderful thing I could say is that we're together, but it's still a strain. We're not with our families. We're not able to see our families. We're not able to see our kids, our grandchildren. I'm basically like an Uber driver, Uber Eats. I have to get the food, groceries, anything that he needs, I have to go get it. It's almost like on call. Like I said, it's like Uber Eats, Uber driver. It gets a little frustrating, but it's all in the game of love. We are each other's cellmates now.
So jail, and more specifically prison, are so bad that literally it's a really heartbreaking story, but my ex-boyfriend, he went to prison for 4 years. There was these guys chasing us, shooting up our car constantly, shot up my house, shot up everything. Anyways, he went back one day after they shot 12 rounds into my house, shot like a whole bunch of rounds into my car while I was driving, rammed me 70 miles an hour while shooting at me. So he went with the AK with his 3 friends and shot up their house and shot his girlfriend. She got shot in the knee. She didn't die, but she did get shot. He went to prison after that. And when he got out, he would not talk. He literally would said a couple words. Anyways, he got back on drugs pretty fast. And he went to Walmart on Spring Mountain and Rainbow, and he was trying to purchase some stuff with the dead guy's credit card. The police were called. He was inside of Walmart. There was no way for him to escape, and he knew it. And it's on video, actually. You can actually watch the whole thing. It's really awful, actually. But he decided that he did not want to go back to prison, and I have personal reasons of why I believe he did that. I'm not going to share in the video, but I know he didn't want to go back to prison so badly that he literally shot a cop twice, and they just killed him.
A lot of stuff, and I mean some violent stuff. Some stuff where inmates got injured. Some stuff where guards got injured, going into cells and having fights. There was some of that going on back in the day. A lot of that did get swept under the carpet. If you came down to the sergeant's office, your shirt was torn and you had a fat lip or a black eye. If he asked you what happened, you'd say you slipped down a flight of stairs. And that was pretty much the end of it. You were told to go clean up and don't walk out looking like that.
When a prisoner gets out of jail, it is ridiculously difficult to adjust back to everyday life. Ridiculously difficult. So I think for me, my role as the mental health professional is helping individuals recognize where trauma lies, both pre and during conviction and sentencing and incarceration. We often see contributing factors such as substance use that contributed to a lot of individuals' behaviors and convictions. And for me, I have a particular specialty in sexualized behaviors and sexual aggression, so there's a whole nother realm that comes with sex offending behaviors that come along with readjusting into life. But you see restrictions on places people can go, places they can work, and when you're removing resources, then you're kind of sometimes setting people up for failure.
When I got out of prison, it was a very difficult transition. I think when you go through a traumatic experience, you don't realize how much it affected you internally until you get out. I guess I could compare it to people that are in war and they have the post-traumatic stress syndrome, because when I first got out, I thought I was fine. And, we had a place together and it should have been all great, but I had a lot of anger in me for the 5 years of my life that I lost. And, it came out. In fact, it came out so much, we almost didn't make it. But evened itself out. We got back together and we were able to weather that storm. But initially, it was pretty rough for that first few months to a year. It took me a while to get over that. And you never really get over it, but, initially I had a lot of anger for losing that time of my life.
So it's like you think once Rosie is going to be Rosie when he comes home from prison. And my first husband, when he came home, it was PTSD. It wasn't Rosie. I had to deal with his prison traumatic stress disorder. And he said I could talk about it, but there was the abuse, the domestic violence abuse. And then I had the low self-esteem. Then I gained the weight. Then I got pregnant. Then I moved back with mom. And then he told me, he was honest. He was like, he felt obligated to marry me because I stayed down with him when he was in prison.
I think with moving around so much, I became friends with a lot of people who were like outcasts and probably who weren't doing the best things. And when they went to jail, I decided to stay with them throughout their time, whatever time it was, whether it was just time in jail or going to prison. But I met everybody on the outside, and we ended up continuing our friendships while they were in prison.
But that is not the norm. And it takes an individual, and I'm speaking about her, my girlfriend, to look beyond the prison blues or whatever the orange that they're wearing, that she sees something beyond that, because there's a stigma attached to prisoners. Right away, you're no good, you're this, you're that, you're a piece of shit. It takes a certain individual to look beyond that and see that there's something good in everybody. And that's the other reason I was able to speak with this woman, because she saw beyond what I was wearing and where I was at that time. Otherwise, it would have never occurred, of course.
When it comes to the revolving door and the environment of prison, really, it's a system that's underfunded, undervalued, understaffed, undertrained. And when you put individuals in very chaotic, very stressful situations with little training, little pay, little support, some of the correctional officers that I work hand in hand with, they're working shifts that are just extraordinarily long because no one wants to do it. We oftentimes find that inmates are dehumanized, and then correctional officers pick up on that, and it's no longer seen as a job, but it's seen as a commodity. It's a paycheck. You remove that humanistic aspect, you start to dislike what you're doing. It becomes really not fun. It's never an excuse for those behaviors, but when you have understaffed, undertrained people, it's very hard to retain them, and that bleeds into the people you're serving. When you have individuals who are incarcerated, who these are the only people you're interacting with in a day. It's a very limited, small world, and when you have people who are not interested, and again, not even maliciously, just that's the kind of environment that gets built when you have understaffed, undertrained, undervalued individuals, as well as, of course, the individuals who aren't motivated for the job, who just genuinely don't like these people and see them as commodities.
Yeah, because of the things that we saw and were subject to, having shit thrown on us, piss. You know, a prisoner can take his stinger that he used to make hot water for coffee or tea, heat up the water, piss in it, shit in it, put tunnel wash in it, which was a bleach they used to clean their floors, and then throw that on us in our face. Or take their toothbrush, light a match under it, stretch it out, tie it to a broomstick handle, which they used to have, a little 2-foot, and then try to spear us as we walked by the cell, spear us in the neck. Doing cocaine was kind of a release. You can go home at night, you're all wound up, stressed out, looking to fight the world, road rage, all of it. You went home and just mellowed out. Or Friday night came, you went to a concert, you partied hard, really hard. Limousine, the drugs, the women, the alcohol, yeah, all of it. Undercover, yeah, we were all partaking. We would do it before we went on duty. We all did it. And when I say we all, I mean there's a close group of a knit of people that did a lot of hanging out together. Of course, I'm not going to mention names. I can't. There was this dichotomy of supervisors that were involved in that kind of behavior as well. And then the parties we would frequent, it may have showed up there. It was, very low-key, not spoken about, but everyone knew. It was very selective about who they would go after, especially when they knew who was doing it. There was one occasion where there was a lieutenant who didn't particularly like me. He had a girlfriend there as well. He didn't like me at all. I didn't like him. He didn't like my union activity and how powerful I was as a union rep. My nickname was Hoffa. I think after my first 6 months of being in the vice presidency and a job steward, the guards started naming me Hoffa because I went after management like a pit bull. It was a different world back then. There wasn't cameras. There was a lot of fist fights. Guards on guards would fight. Guards on prisoners would get into fights, going into cells and whatnot. So it was a totally different world. And almost everyone took part in it. The ones that didn't have jobs that were in the lockup units. I started in the lockup units. So it was like the Wild West.
The reason I stuck by him, the loneliness hit, depression hit, sadness hits, but my prayer, my faith, my love for God, my love for him, that's what keeps us together. Yes, he does worry about me finding someone while he's in there. And I am honest. Yes, I have found someone while he is in there. And I do love him. I am in love with him. And I have found someone on this side who was released, who was serving a 45 to life sentence.
The transition from being a pen pal to the actual being together with somebody physically, it's a whole different ballgame. When you're doing a pen pal, you don't know what to expect until you live with somebody. That's when you really get to know somebody. So when you're doing the pen pal thing and you're talking about I love you and they love you back, that's one thing. But when reality sets in and you're living with this person and the day-to-day challenges of life get in the way, it's a whole different thing. I didn't know what to expect. And as I said previously, when I first came out, I was initially angry, so that got in the way of actual life itself. It's not like the fantasy you've created in your mind when you're writing these letters. Oh, it's going to be beautiful. I'm going to love you forever and blah, 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 blah. And then reality comes in, well, okay, well, I'm still love you, but it's not quite as, all that as I envisioned it in my mind.
One of the biggest challenges is just going to be trying to maintain that connection. We are wired for connection. We need it. It's kind of like oxygen. If I hold your head underwater long enough, doesn't matter where it comes from, we just start to suffocate without it. And so I think couples, they might do okay right at the beginning, but as time passes on, they just start to feel that strain more and more.
What I would tell somebody on house arrest, just be prepared to be under house arrest. It is what it says it is. House arrest, you're in the house. All I can do is work, so I go to work. Come home from work, and that's it. and just can't go out. I think I set my mind to it that that's what it is, and that's how I deal with it. It is what it is. If I'd rather be in jail, no, I'd rather not be in jail. I'd rather be here.
This has taken some time off my life. I quit my job. I moved to another state. I'm missing out on all my family events. But it's only temporary. It's almost over.
I'm facing 1 to 4 on the 16th. And if I was to mess up, I'd be facing a lot longer than that. Jail was the most horrific experience I've ever had, honestly. However, it gave me time to sit where I could do nothing else but talk to God. I was mad at God when I went to jail. I thought, I've lost my daughter in my addiction. I've lost all my friends. I've lost my self-respect. I lost everything, everything. I'm glad I went to jail because it gave me time to realize what was going on. I couldn't get the time sober by myself to be able to realize that I wanted to, I knew I wanted to change. I didn't know how. I didn't have the tools. And so going to jail, I had nothing else to do but sit and talk to God, and I started going through the AA steps, and that actually got me to realize I wasn't mad at God. I was mad at myself because I didn't choose to become an addict. I was raised as an addict, Like I said, I started seeking my own alcohol 5, 6 years old. Every holiday party or whatever, I was tossed back. I was a little girl. I was a baby. And looking at my daughter and her age, I'm like, wow, somebody was getting me drunk 3 years younger than her. What the fuck is that? That's horrible, and it's not okay. So I had all this self-hate because my dad abandoned me, my mother abandoned me, the things that they've said to me, and all the, I've been raped, I've been molested, I've been shot at, I've been buried, all these horrible things. I took on all this weight that I was no good. I'm a drug addict, I'm a piece of crap. I have no future, I can't quit doing drugs even for my kid. I had all this self-hate. So in jail, I went to the SOAR program, and a place called Chosen for Success came in, and they told me that we're gonna reap what we sow, and words are seeds. And if I'm sowing you're a piece of crap, you're never gonna get off drugs, you're never gonna have a future. My subconscious or my spirit, whatever you wanna think it is gonna align to that. And so basically I was telling myself all these things, and so my subconscious and my spirit were listening to it. Okay, that's what you think you are, we're gonna align to that. So I became a piece of crap. But in jail I started recognizing every time I would think, you're not worthy of this, you're never gonna be, any of those thoughts or I'm fat and I'm ugly or whatever these things are, I would stop and be like, no, you know what, I'm beautiful, I'm strong, I'm loved, I'm forgiven, I'm forgiving. I would say all these things. I would even claim I'm sober, I'm a co-heir of Christ, all these good things about myself. And I started slowly but surely, every time one of those thoughts would come in, I started getting it out of there. I surrendered my life to God in jail. I found more freedom in jail than I have anywhere else, even though I had no freedom at all. I couldn't tell myself when I wanted to use the bathroom, when I wanted to eat, when I wanted to go to sleep, when I was allowed to talk, what I could wear, anything. You cannot do anything. I was stuck on a bed for 11 days, actually, without getting off the bed, except for to use the bathroom really quick. Anyways, my whole point is that I needed that time, honestly. I'm glad that I had it. I don't ever want to go back. It was horrific, and it's just not humane. However, I needed it because it gave me time to talk to God and go through things and look at things I didn't ever want to look at.
There's always the nature versus nurture debate. Typically it's a mix of the two. But especially if you are introduced by your extended family, your people around you taking care of you by substances, and they're getting you hooked on things, or you're just experiencing a lot of neglect or abuse, it's just about impossible to try to not let that affect you, especially as you go into adulthood, especially as you're trying to connect with others. Early childhood experiences that were traumatic, without fail, they will be part of your relationship later on. You just got to be able to learn to work through those pieces to be able to connect with others more effectively.
I do think that I was a big effect on them. They were definitely grateful for the time that I was there, but there were definitely times within those 7 years for both of them that it was rough being there for them just because things are so different on the outside versus the inside. They didn't know what I was going through and I didn't know what they were going through, so it was a lot of arguments.
That's life. That's real life when you're in a relationship with somebody. When you're in a pen pal thing, it's more, I don't want to say a fantasy, but to a certain degree it is. I think I'm one of the few that have actually made it. And stayed in a relationship with somebody that I met in prison. Because I think for the most part, I hate to say, but a lot of people that are in prison are not very good people. I wasn't a very good person for a long time. I feel like I've come full circle in my life. But a lot of them have ill intentions. They meet somebody because they want something from them. And the person that's on the other end wants something too. They want attention, and they get the undivided attention of an individual in prison. And that's the reality of the situation. But when the prisoner gets out, they don't really need that person anymore, and they're gone. So mine was, I think, one of the rarer instances.
The first one started when I was only 19 years old. I was dating someone only for a few months, and he ended up going to prison. He was only 22 years old. He got involved in a situation, and he ended up going to jail. I had never been to a jail before, never visited anyone in jail or anything like that, so it was my first experience. I was just 19. It was just really interesting entering those doors at such a young age, and like I said, he was only 22. It was just a very traumatic experience. I never promised that I would not date anyone the whole time he was there. Never promised that. Wasn't even considering it. We were only together 3 months before he went in, so I owe you my life now? No. But we did have an arrangement to where I'd take his phone calls, we would write, I go to visits. When I still lived in Cincinnati, I would go every visit possible, 2 times a month, went to every visit, wrote him, we took phone calls. And I even dated someone who was doing really good financially, and I was still in love with him, the one that's incarcerated. So I would even get money from my boyfriend on the outside and send it to him to keep him, kind of like, well, she's got a boyfriend, but hey, I'm eating good, My boyfriend on the outside at the time, he didn't know about the one in jail. And so when I left him for those 2 years that I mentioned, this is actually the situation that caused that. The one on the inside, though he was reaping the benefits of me with this person, sending him all the money, he ended up getting jealous because one time I had them both on the phone at the same time, and I chose to talk to the one who I was physically living with at the time. So he got a little upset, and what he did was he was good at finding people. He got the guy's number and actually called the guy, told him that I was sending him his money. So I was so hurt at the time. I remember still crying on the shoulder of the one I was physically with, hurt by the one in jail. I still remember. And I stopped talking to him after that.
Sam, my current partner here, struggles with me being in a relationship with my current partner that's still locked up. Absolutely. Men can be very manipulative. Absolutely. I can even speak on my daughter's father. Even I met him from behind the wall. He called me from a wrong number, and I was grieving. And they said, collect call from Antonio. And I'm thinking it's my son's father. But this guy dialed the wrong number. So I'm grieving. I'm like, collect call from, and I'm thinking it's my son's father. And they was like, Antonio. And I'm like, I accepted. And he was like, oh, this is Anthony. I'm like, Anthony? And I'm like, okay, I accepted. And he was like, oh, I'm sorry, I dialed the wrong number. But me not being in my right mind, I accepted the call. Here I am, I'm lonely. I lost a son. I have nobody. I accepted it. And then he was like, will you visit me? Will you write me? Here it is. I take his number. Not his number. I take his address. He comes home. Boom, bam. We get married. Who does that?
I did have somebody while I was talking to people on the inside, and that's another thing that just doesn't work. You cannot keep, just because the relationship with the prisoner, it gets so deep because it's like they don't have like all the things going on in their lives that you do. So you're pretty much all they have. So it's gonna become a deep connection, whether you want it to or not, whether it's manipulation or not. It's gonna be some form of depth. I don't think you could have a real relationship and then maintain the support of your friends that are prisoners, because it's just too much.
If I were to give advice to someone going to prison, I would say this. First of all, don't go to fucking prison, okay? Don't go to fucking prison because it's a horrible, horrible place. That's A. B, if you find yourself in that position, this is your time. This is your opportunity to reflect, to make changes in your life, and you can. Let me tell you, one thing for sure, prison is not set up for rehabilitation. Not at all. They warehouse you. They don't give a shit about you. But you can give a shit about yourself and do something about it. And if you take that time, whatever years you got, you can make a positive change and come out better than ever before. And it can happen.
What I struggle with a lot is with addiction. I've struggled with it most of my life, and I'm still struggling with it. But you gotta put it aside and just go forward. You gotta have goals. I gotta have goals in my life to strive for. If not, I'm just gonna be living and wandering around and just going to work and coming home. I have goals now. I wanna buy my house. I wanna do things like that. I wanna leave my children something when I pass away. Just making them goals and striving for them gives me purpose. Other than that, I could just be a drug addict if I wanted to, but I choose not to.
It is very hard to stay strong for another person when you can barely stay strong for yourself. We were actually addicts together.
It's sad where addiction will take you. You're not really choosing. Actually, addiction takes over your choice. After a while of using, you literally no longer have a choice. People wouldn't choose to get rid of their kids. People wouldn't choose to go be homeless and live under a bridge. But I would. When I was on drugs, I would. I would think, okay, I'll go live in an abandoned house and I'll just go shoot heroin while my daughter got taken. I always loved my daughter and I wanted to get clean for her, but I literally could not do it. I couldn't. I tried many times and I couldn't stop. You have to get really, really, really willing to do a whole bunch of really, really painful stuff and pray to God that you get put into a detox or somewhere where you can't physically get out of to get through the detox part. Because if you can't get through the detox part, you really can't even start thinking clearly enough to do it.
Based on some of the things I've said today on camera, there's a lot of people out there that would wish that I die of cancer. And there's a lot of people that hate me. A lot of people out there that were guards used to call me inmate lover because I wouldn't go out of my way to bust their balls. I wouldn't try to make their life miserable. Those are the same people that went out of their way to make their fucking life miserable. So in my opinion, they were just pieces of shit. It wasn't my job to punish them any harder than the punishment the judge gave them. And they didn't like that. If they wanted to plant drugs, if they wanted to do stupid shit like that, I wouldn't take part in it. So, and I didn't have a spotless record at the very end. I wound up getting arrested. I wound up having a case. I resigned after 20 years. I didn't retire because I got arrested for cocaine possession. I didn't have to do any time. I didn't have to rat on anybody because that's a fucking punk move. I didn't rat on anyone. I could have rolled on all those lieutenants and captains and officers that I knew were putting a fucking straw up their nose of cocaine. I could have cut a deal. The DA would have wanted me to cut a deal, but I didn't cut a deal. I shut my mouth. I took my licks. I paid my $50,000. I mortgaged my house. I mortgaged everything and got my ass out of trouble with a good lawyer. So for all the people out there that say fuck Lee Beck, I say fuck you because you're pieces of shit and you're punks. So I did what I had to do, and yeah, I got caught. I did my number, and I shut my fucking mouth, and I didn't rat on nobody. I never ratted on a prisoner, even though a prisoner ratted on me and got me arrested. And you guys bought it hook, line, and sinker. So have a nice fucking day. Do I have anything nice to say about any of you? No, you could all rot in hell.
If it's always about him or her, always wanting money, always selfish, those are red flags. always putting themselves before you and what you got going on, even though you work and you have kids, and always putting their needs before yours. Those are all red flags. If you always have to answer the phone, if they're always controlling, those are all red flags. That means run.
I'm on a dating app right now, on the Facebook dating app, having a ball. But I was chatting with a really, really gorgeous guy. I was like, oh, maybe he's the one. You know how women are. And then he breaks it to me. He's like, I'm in jail. I just happen to have a phone. And so, I mean, the power thing, like this guy looking like Enrique or somebody, looking like The Rock, or just like gorgeous. I could totally, if he'd say yes to everything I say, but when he gets out, that's another story. I lose the power. So I'm sure some of these women really have fun with that. Yeah.
Individuals who come out of incarceration often do face financial hardships upon return to the everyday environment. I mean, there's a number of jobs you can't get. There's a number of places you're not allowed to work. There's a number of people you're not allowed to see. And by way of that, you haven't had an income for a number of years. There's a number of contributing factors when it comes to the financial difficulties. I find that a lot of these programs are either government funded or completely charitable, in which there is no cost. NAMI has no cost to utilize their services. Where I do find some financial hardships in this realm is in the sense of proper rehab programs, proper mental health residential supports, and group homes and adult living. And there are a number of government-aided ones and charitable functions, but oftentimes there can be a barrier to getting that. There's a difference, unfortunately, between privately funded mental health and residential programs and reentry programs versus the government-funded ones.
Advice I would give to somebody that's watching this would be, don't try to manage all of this on your own. Relationships are so complex, they're so dynamic. We could have so many questions and doubts. Try to do whatever you can to rally your troops, find an expert, find somebody else that maybe has been there, done that, or another relationship expert that can kind of help walk you through when those doubts and concerns and worries show up. It's just too much to do on our own. Like I said, we're wired for connection. We need to be with others. Trying to solve this problem on our own, it's just not how we're made, so just do it with somebody else.
I feel that me going to prison, aside from meeting the love of my life, was the best thing that ever happened to me. Those 5 years in prison gave me a reality check that has not left me. And I was absolutely being completely selfish prior to that. I had a good life prior to that. And I was willing to throw it all away because of my selfishness and what I wanted to do. So I absolutely feel that it turned out to be the biggest blessing in disguise.
If you're starting to date someone who's in jail, you may want to ask yourself why. Not that it's a bad thing, but you might want to just make sure that you're going into it for the right reasons. If you want to be there for someone as a companion, as a support system, I think it's wonderful. But if you're going into it because a power move, you have power over them, you might just want to question your reasons for it. But I definitely agree with being a support system to someone who's in there. Like I said before, they really need it.
I feel like from what I see, the people that come out of jail, I feel like they struggle 100%, and I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of support for them, which is why they continue to manipulate women and other people that they can, because there's not really sources available to them.
I think most people that are going through things, that are going in and out of jail, they run into a lot of things that I've run into. I think you gotta have a state of mind where you're gonna make it. There's no other option for me, in my mind, but to make it. I'm already older. I'm not a youngster, I'm not a kid out there that could just throw away a couple more years. I can't do that no more. I have to really put an effort into it 100% or don't do it at all.
Be real with yourself. Love yourself first. And that's what I had to find out the hard way, because I've been in multiple prison relationships. You know, there are prison relationships, there are football relationships, there's high school relationships. It doesn't matter where you have a relationship. Let's identify that. The relationship consists of what it can do on its own, right? Not of what it can borrow from other people. So it starts with self-love. So long as you love yourself, you can love your partner anywhere.
I feel at times that I owe her for saving my life. And in turn, I feel a sense of obligation to be with her because of that. I firmly believe everything happens for a reason. I truly believe that. And there's no question that I was given a gift when she came into my life and helped me through it. But yeah, there's times I owe her, you know, I feel obligated to her. Then I question, is that the reason why I'm with her? Is that the reason I'm staying with her? Because she saved my life? And then I realize, you know what, that's not it. I do love this woman. I mean, in the end, if I wanted to really go, I would go.
I'm not sure how my lawyer worked it out exactly. He globalized all my cases. But I was facing like 15 to 20 years. And if I mess up, I could still face that times. But beforehand, I would have literally, this is the drug test patch I have on, I would have ripped this off. I would have like, I'm facing 1 to 4 for sure. So I'm at least going away at some point. I might as well go get as high as I can before I go. So I do know that I really don't want to get high, because I would have said, screw it, I'm going to run until I get caught. This is from Options. They put this patch on you. You go turn it in once a week. You got to pay a lot of money for it. But it just monitors what drugs you have in your system. So if I turn this in with any drugs in it, I'll immediately go back to jail.
I feel like I was a lifeline and an outside support for them, because they don't really know what's going on. They have the news, but they don't know what's going on in the friend circles. They don't know the jokes. They don't know the memes. Like, that's the thing. I was going through social media. I was sending them memes. I was sending them anything to keep them in the world, because that's the thing. When you go to prison, you could be lost so quick.
There's such a wide range. There's some folks that just aren't safe to be around others. People that I know that have gone into prison and come out, especially for an extended period of time, meaning 5+ years, it has a lasting effect no matter what. You know, they might not be willing to or wanting to phrase it as trauma or that it was something that hurt them. A lot of them walk out with kind of like a badge of honor, but it's something that has a lasting impact for the rest of their lives. I would like to say that hopefully it helps the community stay safe at large, but when it comes to the individual, I've never seen it be something that they walk away feeling like this helped me long term.
Don't go work for the Department of Corrections. It's a thankless job. You're going to go home at night stressed out. You're going to want to drink. You're going to want to self-medicate. I suffer from PTSD because of the job. I was very seriously injured after working there, which could have connected back to my job there. Having been stabbed 17 times and beaten with a pipe by 3 guys that broke my neck. I think it might have been gang affiliated, but I have never had any problems with the gangs. So there's repercussions that come from that job.
Prison is a horrible place. Let me tell you what happened to me originally when I went to prison, aside from the woman. I wound up going to prison. The Hispanic gangs are in there, and they approached me, and they asked me, well, you're going to run with us or you're not? And I says, I'm not going to run with you. I'm not a gang member. I've never even been involved in anything like that. So they jumped me. I had 10 guys jump me. I said all that to say this. They don't give a shit about you in there. That's why you got to take care of yourself and from the inside out, because they're not there to rehabilitate you. But there are programs there if you want them and you can do something. But for the most part, it's a horrible warehousing place, and they encourage the violence. They encourage it because that's overtime. They put the prison on lockdown, we get big time overtime. So it's just on and on. The prison is a multi-billion-dollar money-making machine. That's what the fuck they are. and that's all they care about. Not to say that there aren't some good people there. I met my girl there. She's a great person. But it's horrible. It's very sadistic. There are sadistic guards there. And I mean sadistic, sick people. They should be wearing the prison blues. So, I mean, I could go on for forever. The stories, the things that I've seen, I got nothing nice to say about it.
When I was in my addiction, I was looking to mask the pain of certain things that I had no control over, that I felt was a misjustice to me, that I was wronged, nothing I can do about it, and just a way of coping with a pain was to do drugs. And it's not the right way. When I did that, I think I just prolonged it. So instead of something that would take 3-4 months to get over, it took 3 or 4 years. Because I'm just getting high. I'm just masking the pain, not dealing with it. And I think, to tell you the truth, I was mad at God. Because allowing certain things to happen the way they did, I just felt wasn't right.
What I think people could do to maintain a healthy relationship is to get in a support group, have self-help courses, talk to someone. That is the number one thing. If you don't talk, if you don't share, you will not have a healthy relationship. And that's what people don't like to do. They just close up, don't say anything, and that's where sickness come in at. That's where PTSD, that's where suicidal thoughts come in at, that's where depression come in at, that's where sadness, loneliness, idleness, idle mind is like the enemy workshop. So you have to do the work in order to maintain a healthy relationship. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, I have the power to answer this call or not. And when I realized that I had that power, oh, I felt so good.
I really wish people would remember that these are people who are humans first and have the same basic needs as people who have not committed crimes. And I wish that would be something that would be remembered as individuals who work with them. The prison system needs a very significant change when it comes to rehabilitative services. You're setting people up for failure when you don't have services in place that are effective, adequate, and available. When those things aren't available both inside the incarceration and outside the incarceration, people will revert back to behaviors that they used prior to. And I thoroughly believe that the prison system and the probation and parole system need a very heavy overview when it comes to the mental health services that they're able to provide.
I can see him through the window. He's got a knife. He chased a woman into a doorway. He's going to stab her. Hurry, 8th and Pine on the west side. Hurry, quick!
Hello. Hello. Man running amok with a knife at 8th and Pine.
Attention all cars. Attention all cars. All cars in vicinity of 8th and Pine, go there at once. Man with knife running amok. All cars in vicinity of 8th and Pine, go there at once.
Where'd you get the pooch?
Don't worry about his pedigree, honey. I just picked it up to help you right. All right, let's go. Don't try to see us for a few days, Doc. We'll leave your cub with the old lady.
let me in, please. If it's important, officer, open the door. Please, officer.
I'm sorry, lady, but we don't open until 10 o'clock.
But that's half an hour and I can't wait. I've got to catch a train.
That's hard luck, but we can make no exceptions for nobody.
Oh, but you don't understand, officer. I don't want to cash a check. I just want to put some money into cover one.
Yeah? Well, in that case,
Oh,
maybe...
thanks you ever so much.
She made it. I don't like to see a dame like that get mixed up in a job like this.
What, are you going to soft on the dame?
Now, if you'll just hold Tiny while I make out my deposit slip. I don't know what I'd have done if you hadn't let me in. Now, let's see. Do I put down my address, too?
Yes,
My maid usually does my banking, and I know absolutely nothing about it.
Put them up, everybody. Don't move and keep your trap shut. Now we get going. Feel better with that off your hip.